Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Warzone has obviously evolved a ton since it first launched. Way back in 2020 with Modern Warfare 2019, the game launched. Obviously, it took off, but it started as something very different from what it is now. Back during the first few days of Modern Warfare 2019 Warzone, the game was Battle Royale only. It was trios only at the start. Like, it is crazy how much the game has changed. We've seen new integrations happen with Cold War, Vanguard, MW2, MW3, most recently Black Ops 6. We've seen hundreds and hundreds of operators and weapons and different quality of life updates and all sorts of things happen over the years. However, obviously, the perception of Warzone has gone up and down. It's been a roller coaster. Truly, it did really peak during Modern Warfare 2019 and Cold War. That also could be largely attributed to what was going on in the world at that time. Obviously, everyone's stuck inside, so there were naturally a lot more players on the game. But in terms of community sentiment, when they enjoyed Warzone the most, it seems like oftentimes those classic Warzone days are what are looked back on most fondly, right? Versus, Vanguard Warzone with Caldera. That was not really a fan favorite element by any means. Modern Warfare 2 Warzone reset everything, did irreparable damage to the franchise when that first launched because the player drop off. Modern Warfare 3 definitely brought things back some, and Warzone in Black Ops 6 certainly launched with a lot of potential, and of course, a lot of that has been severely limited, I would say, up until this point, due to issues that are overshadowing everything going on in Call of Duty with poor communication from Activision and the devs. Obviously, major cheating issues, major server issues, and so the game definitely has, like I said, sort of gone up and down in terms of perception, what people like, what people didn't like. Warzone has gone away from a few specific things, though, over the years that I did want to highlight here, because a lot of these were pretty standard features, pretty standard elements of updates throughout various seasons back during the quote-unquote golden days of Warzone in MW 2019 and Cold War. We got it a little bit within Caldera and Vanguard, but then they've really started to go away from it ever since the new era of Warzone dropped, obviously with Warzone 2 and everything we've seen since then. And this was stuff that I feel like really gave Warzone an identity, really made it feel like the game was alive and ever evolving alongside us, rather than just being a game that gets updated. Like, obviously, we see more updates in Warzone now than ever before. We see constant seasonal updates. We see a ton of patch notes and changes and weapon balancing and stuff goes out, but the game at times can often feel lifeless. It can feel very stagnant, kind of monotonous, especially as you get into the later seasons. And that's because Warzone as an entity, if you will, doesn't really evolve. Sure, gameplay gets updates, gameplay evolves, but what Warzone is as a whole really doesn't. And what I attribute a lot of the identity updates and the identity evolution for Warzone back in the day to is the various evolutions we got of the map, of the story, and what really carved out Warzone as its own thing. Right now, Warzone just doesn't have this. And this is really something that started back, honestly, in Blackout, surprisingly enough. If you recall, Blackout season to season used to evolve a ton. We would see map updates to the Blackout map with new POIs. We'd see different elements change. At times, the map was entirely flooded, or it was a sunset map or spring blossom, right? The map felt alive, the map felt ever evolving, and that makes playing on it a lot more interesting. It kept it fresh and unique. And then that same sort of thing transferred into Warzone. Not necessarily always on the same scale, but Verdansk started out as what it was during Modern Warfare 2019, and it evolved. We had those seasonal storyline updates where we'd get that little cutscene intro, and for instance, season 5, I think it was, they blew up the stadium, so you can now access the inside of the stadium. Creates a whole new POI on the map, keeps gameplay feeling fresh and fun. The past couple of seasons, you run around stadium, it's like, oh boy, this is gonna be a rough one. Now, they updated, it's an entirely new POI, and everything around that area of the map plays different. So not only, do you have your new operators and your new weapons and your updated meta builds and everything that, you're using in game, but then also what's around you in game feels fresh and new at the same time. It's that added layer of identity, that added layer of evolution that keeps the game feeling fresh season to season. pretty much continued all the way through MW 2019 into Cold War. For the entirety of Verdansk, we were seeing these storyline based updates in Warzone where we would have various things changed on the map. You know, downtown got shook up because of the bomb that they set off, so there were rifts and chasms going through downtown. We saw all sorts of stuff happen, you know, with these changes based on the storyline, based on lore, that gave Warzone a true identity, that made it something beyond just gunfights and constantly spam queuing into, you know, a resurgence lobby or something. There was more to it, and the game, in my opinion, really felt more alive, outside of just the game having a more alive player base. You may also recall that in addition to Verdansk always seeing map updates and evolutions there to tie in with whatever is going on in Call of Duty in general, we also had this during Modern Warfare 2019, where we had these intel missions, where like almost bi-weekly, I think it was, throughout some of the seasons, they would update the intel section on the menu with various clues, challenging us to go in game and actually investigate. So adding another element to gameplay. It wasn't just battle royale at that point. It wasn't just plunder at that point. It was, hey, go in game. Yes, obviously you got to survive. You might want to gear up, loot up, get your loadout, whatever, but then go and investigate this, you know, locker in this random POI, and then go to a mountaintop and see if you can find an etching on a tree or something ridiculous like that. But again, it added an identity to the game. It gave us something extra to do, and it added this layer of depth to the game. It added a layer of depth to the identity of what Warzone was. It didn't feel lifeless like it does now in terms of these things, right? These story cutscenes shifted from what they were then, constantly building up, to something major happening on the map where we get a new POI, or a new map was added into the rotation with Resurgence purely because of the storyline, and then that built on top of everything there. Like, it was actually cool, meaningful updates that we knew had an impact on the game and the story. All of that shifted from being story-based, lore-based identity building to, hey, what's the new cutscene now? Oh, look at all these operator skins that are in our store. Look at all these blueprints that are in our store. Go buy the battle pass. Nothing about it whatsoever. It feels so hollow and so shallow from a storyline and from an identity perspective. It's all just monetization being shoved everywhere. And like I said earlier, this was really a big thing during Modern Warfare 2019 and then Cold War. Vanguard had this a little bit, like we saw Caldera updated a tad bit where, you know, Peak had layers added to it there, or certain other POIs were adjusted and there was a storyline behind that. It certainly was not to the level of MW 2019 and Cold War, and I think we as a community kind of noticed that descent down away from these lore-based and these identity-based updates. And then it really, you know, started to get away from that during Modern Warfare 2 Warzone when that launched. Like, we don't really see map updates all that often. We don't really see significant story-based or identity-based updates all that often. Instead, it's just simply whatever the seasonal content is that has no real tie-ins to Call of Duty as a title. It's just more so crossovers and random promotions there. It's no longer, hey, the campaign ended off with this and now we're going to evolve it into Warzone, and you'll see updates to the world because of this. You'll see new POIs created, other POIs adjusted because of this. You'll be able to find various secrets in game because of this. It's all just, hey, look at this new bunny rabbit jumping around because we have this as a part of the battle pass now. Yeah, that's in the trailer. It just doesn't nearly seem as much of a complete game as it is now just a, hey, use this gun because it's meta and there's 4 blueprints for it in the store, and jump into the same Resurgence map. There's the same Battle Royale map that you've been playing for a year with essentially no updates or minimal updates at that, which is just kind of a bummer. And I feel like that also plays a big factor in player retention and player sentiment. Obviously, like I said at the start, yes, circumstances were different in MW 2019 and Cold War that allowed players to play this game and stay on it consistently, but it was also brand new and super fresh and super unique to Call of Duty that it naturally attracted a lot of players just outright, and then it's not nearly as new or fresh or unique anymore because everyone's got a battle royale and Warzone's existed for some time. But you compound all of this together and it's like, hey, yes, that's a factor. Everyone was stuck inside. The game was brand new, but they were also progressively working towards building out Warzone and carving out Warzone as its own thing for a long time and making it feel alive and unique. And now it just doesn't necessarily have that same feel to it. Now, yes, this stuff is very nitpicky, very small by comparison. Like, clearly Warzone needs much more drastic updates outside of the storyline being built out better and a couple map updates here and there, although those I think could go a long way, and especially having like a new map like Avalon, for instance, could be pretty big, but I still think it's an added element to it. And once they do eventually go through and sort out things with the cheaters and the servers and stuff like that, where much more focus can be applied to gameplay and criticizing that and trying to build out that and fine tune that to get it into a better spot, this is kind of the stuff that I think could really go a long ways in the long term, right? So very curious to get your thoughts on this down in the comments below. Did you enjoy this element of Warzone back in the day? Was it a big reason you felt the game maybe was more successful back then as well? Or is it just kind of a coincidental, yes, the game just overall was better back then and this was a byproduct of that? Let me know down in the comments below if you did enjoy the video. While you're at it down there, a like rating would always be seriously appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, you want to guarantee that every single day you are in the know for all things going on in COD, feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on your post notifications on your way out. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.